Found out my sister's fiancé had already ordered furniture for my cabin before I even agreed to the wedding. Hey friends. Got a sec? Drop your thoughts in the comments and hit subscribe. It's quick for you, but it really means a lot to us. Alright, let's dive into today's story. Original post. I never thought I'd be writing here, but I need some perspective on a situation that's been eating at me for weeks. I'm Lucas, 29M, and I own a cabin in the mountains about 3 hours from where most of my family lives. It's nothing fancy, just a 2-bedroom place on 5 acres with a decent view of the valley, but it's mine. I bought it 2 years ago after saving for nearly a decade, and it's become my sanctuary from the stress of working as a software engineer in the city. My younger sister Sophia, 25F, got engaged 6 months ago to her boyfriend Mark, 27M. They've been together for 2 years, and honestly, I've always thought Mark was a decent guy, if a bit passive. When they announced their engagement at a family dinner, everyone was thrilled. My parents immediately started talking about venues and planning, and that's when things started getting complicated. Sophia mentioned she'd always dreamed of a mountain wedding. My mom's eyes lit up, and she immediately suggested my cabin. It would be perfect, she exclaimed. Family property, beautiful views, and so intimate. Before I could even process what was happening, Sophia was squealing with excitement, already talking about string lights and wildflower arrangements. I want to be clear, I love my sister. Growing up, we were competitive but close. She was the golden child, valedictorian, full scholarship to college, engaged to a lawyer, while I was the quiet one who took 5 years to finish my computer science degree. But I worked hard, lived frugally, and that cabin represents everything I've achieved on my own. When I hesitantly agreed to let them use the cabin for the wedding, Sophia hugged me so tight I couldn't breathe. "You're the best brother ever," she said. But then she started talking about renovations. She wanted to repaint the exterior, upgrade the deck, install a permanent dance floor area, and create a bridal suite in the master bedroom. When I suggested these seemed like major changes for a one-day event, she laughed and said, "Well, it'll increase your property value." Mark pulled me aside later and mentioned they'd cover the costs of any improvements. That seemed reasonable, but something felt off. When I asked about the timeline, Sophia said they'd need access starting 3 months before the wedding for preparations. 3 months seemed excessive, but my parents were already calling me generous and wonderful, and I didn't want to seem selfish. Last week, my cousin Emma, 31F, who works as a real estate agent, came to visit. She wanted to see the cabin since she'd heard so much about it. While we were having coffee on the deck, I mentioned the wedding plans. Emma's expression changed immediately. 3 months of access. Major renovations. Lucas, has Sophia mentioned anything else about the cabin? I told her Sophia had made some jokes about it being her anniversary spot, and how she and Mark would love to spend every anniversary there. Emma set down her coffee cup hard enough to make it clatter. "Lucas, I need you to listen very carefully. Has she or Mark asked you to sign anything? Any agreements about the wedding or the renovations?" My stomach dropped. I admitted Mark had emailed me a simple agreement about the renovations that his lawyer friend had drawn up, just to protect everyone. I hadn't signed it yet, but had been planning to. Emma asked to see it immediately. Update 1. The documents don't lie. Emma spent 2 hours going through the agreement Mark had sent. Her face got progressively more serious as she read. Finally, she looked up at me with an expression I'd never seen before, part anger, part disbelief. "Lucas, this isn't a renovation agreement. This is practically a transfer of property rights. If you sign this, they'd have legal claim to occupy the cabin for 3 months, make any modifications they deem necessary, and, here's the kicker, maintain ongoing access rights for memorial purposes. That's legal language that could be interpreted as permanent partial residence rights." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Emma continued, "There's more. The way this is written, if they establish residency during those 3 months and make substantial improvements, they could potentially claim adverse possession down the line, especially if they can prove they've been maintaining and improving the property." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This had to be a misunderstanding. Sophia was my sister. She wouldn't try to steal my cabin, would she? Emma suggested we do some discreet investigating. She had connections at the county records office and could check if there had been any unusual inquiries about my property. She also recommended I install security cameras immediately and change my locks, just as a precaution. 2 days later, Emma called me with information that made my blood run cold. Someone had indeed been making inquiries about my property, specifically about liens, ownership history, and something called tenancy establishment procedures. The inquiries had been made by a law firm. Mark's law firm. But that wasn't the worst part. Emma had done some social media digging and found Sophia's private Pinterest board titled Our Mountain Home. It was full of renovation plans, furniture arrangements, and seasonal decoration ideas for my cabin. The descriptions talked about our forever anniversary home and where our children will spend summers. One caption read, "Can't wait to make Lucas's bachelor pad into our family retreat." I confronted Sophia the next day. I kept it calm, just asked her directly about her long-term plans for the cabin. At first, she played innocent, saying she just wanted the perfect wedding. But when I mentioned the Pinterest board, her demeanor changed completely. "You went snooping on my private boards," she accused. "Sophia, it's my property. I have a right to know if you're planning to move in." She rolled her eyes. "God, Lucas, don't be so dramatic. It's not like you use it much anyway. You're there, what, 1 weekend a month? Mark and I would actually appreciate it. We'd take care of it, improve it. Mom agrees it makes sense for a family property to go to someone who's actually starting a family." The phrase, family property, hit me like a slap. "It's not family property, Sophia. It's my property. I bought it with my money. Money you saved by living at home until you were 25, she shot back. "While I had to take out student loans because I actually went away to college. But sure, keep your precious cabin all to yourself while Mark and I start our marriage in a cramped apartment." The conversation devolved from there. She accused me of being selfish, of not supporting her happiness, of always having to one-up her. That last accusation stunned me. I'd never tried to compete with her. If anything, I'd always felt like I was playing catch-up to my successful little sister. Emma helped me find a property lawyer the next day. He reviewed the agreement and confirmed everything Emma had suspected. He also helped me draft a proper rental agreement for the wedding, 1 day only, with specific terms about modifications and liability. No overnight stays before or after, no renovations without written approval, and absolutely no ongoing access rights. Update 2. The Family Explosion. When I presented the new agreement to Sophia and Mark, all hell broke loose. Mark tried to play it cool, saying my lawyer had misunderstood their intentions, but Sophia went nuclear. She called our parents immediately, crying about how I was ruining her wedding and treating her like a criminal. My parents called within minutes. My mom was disappointed in me for making things complicated, while my dad said I should be honored Sophia wanted to use the cabin so much. "Family helps family," he said. "Don't you want your sister to be happy?" I tried explaining about the original agreement, but they dismissed it as a misunderstanding. "Mark's a lawyer," my mom said. "I'm sure he just wanted everything properly documented. You're being paranoid." Emma, God bless her, stepped in at this point. She called my parents and laid out exactly what the agreement would have meant in legal terms. She also shared what she'd discovered about the property inquiries. My parents were shocked but still tried to minimize it. "Maybe Mark was just being thorough," my dad suggested weakly. The family group chat exploded. Relatives chose sides. Some thought I was being selfish with my bachelor cabin, while others said Sophia was being entitled. My aunt, Emma's mom, pointed out that this wasn't the first time Sophia had tried to claim things that weren't hers. Apparently, there had been an incident in college where she tried to take over her roommate's car by gradually establishing usage patterns and then claiming shared ownership. Sophia posted a long Facebook rant about unsupportive family members and how some people couldn't stand to see others happy. She didn't name me directly, but everyone knew. Mark posted about jealous relatives trying to sabotage their special day. I was ready to cave. The family drama was overwhelming, and I started wondering if I was being selfish. Maybe I should just let them have the cabin. Emma talked me off that ledge. "Lucas," she said, "this isn't about a wedding. This is about respect and boundaries. If you give in now, where does it end?" She was right. I stood firm. I offered them the 1-day rental agreement or nothing. Sophia responded by uninviting me from the wedding and announcing they'd found a better venue, an expensive resort that my parents would now have to help pay for. Update 3. The truth comes out. 3 months passed. The wedding happened without me. I saw the photos on social media. It looked beautiful but expensive. My parents were cold toward me, and several family members stopped talking to me altogether. I spent most weekends at my cabin, trying to convince myself I'd done the right thing. Then Emma called with shocking news. She'd been at a professional networking event and ran into one of Mark's colleagues. After a few drinks, the colleague mentioned that Mark had been bragging about his brilliant plan to acquire a mountain property through strategic family positioning. He'd apparently been telling people that his naive brother-in-law was going to essentially hand over a valuable property for the cost of some renovations. Emma recorded the conversation. It's a one-party consent state. The colleague went on to say that Mark had done this before. Moved in with a girlfriend's family, established residency, and then claimed tenant rights when they broke up. He'd apparently coached Sophia on how to approach me, how to make it seem like just a wedding venue request while laying groundwork for a larger claim. I felt sick. My own sister had been planning to con me out of my cabin. But Emma wasn't done. She'd also discovered that Mark and Sophia had already put a deposit on furniture for the cabin, had scheduled contractors for renovations, and had even looked into changing the mailing address for some of their bills to my cabin's address, all before I'd agreed to anything. I forwarded everything to my parents. My mom called me crying, apologizing for not believing me. My dad was furious, not at me, but at Sophia and Mark. They confronted Sophia, who initially denied everything. But when presented with the evidence, she broke down. The story she told was both pathetic and infuriating. Mark had convinced her that I didn't deserve the cabin, that I'd only been able to buy it because I'd mooched off our parents for years. He'd said that since she was the one starting a family, she had more right to a family property. He'd made her believe that taking the cabin was somehow righteous, a way of balancing the scales. But then Sophia admitted something that shocked everyone. She'd been resentful of me for years. Not because I was more successful, but because I'd opted out of the family competition. While she was killing herself to be perfect, perfect grades, perfect boyfriend, perfect life, I'd quietly gone my own way and found happiness. The cabin represented everything she thought she should have achieved by now. You were supposed to be the failure, she said through tears when we finally talked. You barely graduated, you lived at home, you had no ambition. But you're happy. You have your cabin, your job you actually like, your freedom. I have student loans, a husband who sees me as an investment opportunity, and parents who only love me when I'm achieving something. Update 4. The Unraveling. The revelation about Mark's true nature and Sophia's resentments triggered an avalanche of consequences. Within a week of our parents confronting them, cracks in Sophia and Mark's relationship became chasms. Mark, realizing his scheme had been exposed, tried damage control by blaming everything on Sophia's miscommunication and family jealousy issues. He actually had the audacity to call me and suggest we could work something out if I was willing to be reasonable. Sophia, meanwhile, was spiraling. She called me at 2 a.m. one night, drunk and crying. He doesn't even like the mountains, she sobbed. He just saw dollar signs. He calculated your property value and talked about how we could Airbnb it when we weren't there. It was never about our anniversary spot. It was always about the money. She revealed more disturbing details. Mark had been pushing her to ask our parents about their will, suggesting she ensure she was getting her fair share. He'd made spreadsheets of family assets and had plans for how to leverage relationships for financial gain. The cabin was just the first step in a larger scheme to accumulate family property. My parents were devastated. They'd paid for most of the wedding, believing they were supporting their daughter's happiness. Now they realized they'd funded a con artist's show. My dad, particularly, took it hard. He'd always prided himself on being a good judge of character and felt humiliated that he'd been fooled. Emma, ever the investigator, discovered that Mark had significant debts he hadn't disclosed to Sophia. Law school loans, credit card debt, and a failed business venture had left him desperate. The cabin scheme wasn't just greed, it was desperation dressed up as entitlement. Sophia moved back home with our parents. She said she needed time to think, but I suspect she already knew the marriage was over. Mark tried to salvage things by suggesting couples therapy, but Sophia had finally seen through his manipulation. He kept saying you were the selfish one, she told me. But you never asked anything from anyone. You just worked and saved and built your own life. He's the one who feels entitled to everyone else's achievements. Update 5. 6 months later, the real conversation. It's been 6 months since the wedding that almost wasn't, and the landscape of our family has completely changed. Sophia and Mark are getting divorced. It's messy. Mark tried to claim he should be compensated for the emotional labor of planning a wedding and the career opportunities he'd sacrificed by marrying into our dysfunctional family. His attempts to claim assets from a marriage that lasted less than 6 months would be laughable if they weren't so pathetic. But the real transformation has been in my relationship with Sophia. After she left Mark, she started therapy, individual therapy, not couples counseling. Her therapist helped her realize that our family's culture of constant competition had warped her sense of self-worth. She could only value herself through achievements and comparisons. We met for coffee at a neutral location, not the cabin, not our parents' house, just a quiet cafe downtown. It was the first honest conversation we'd had in years, maybe ever. I've hated you for so long, she admitted, wrapping her hands around her mug. Not real hate, but this burning resentment. You know what the worst part was? You never even knew we were competing. She was right. I'd never seen us as competitors. I was just trying to survive, to find my own path. While she was collecting achievements like trophies, I was just trying to build a life that felt authentic. Mom and Dad always compared us, she continued. But it was subtle. Sophia got straight A's, but Lucas is so creative. Lucas might not be academic, but Sophia sometimes struggles socially. They thought they were being balanced, but they were pitting us against each other. We talked about our childhoods, seeing them through new eyes. Every achievement of hers had been shadowed by wondering if it was enough to stay ahead. Every struggle of mine had been cushioned by opting out of the race entirely. She'd been running herself ragged on a treadmill while I'd wandered off to find my own path. The cabin thing, she said, staring into her coffee, it wasn't really about the cabin. It was about winning. Finally having something bigger than you. Mark fed into that, made me believe I deserved it, that taking it was justice. But it was just me trying to prove I was the successful one. I asked her what success meant to her now. She laughed, but it was bitter. I don't know. I'm 25, getting divorced, living with my parents, and in therapy. By my old standards, I'm a complete failure. But I'm also relieved. Like I can finally stop running. We started meeting weekly. Not to reconcile, exactly, but to rebuild. We had to learn how to be siblings without the competition, without the roles our family had assigned us. It wasn't easy. There were sessions where old resentments flared, where she accused me of having it easy, where I pointed out that being labeled the family disappointment wasn't exactly a picnic. Emma joined us sometimes, providing perspective as someone who loved us both but had seen our dysfunction clearly. Your parents meant well, she said during one particularly intense discussion. But they raised you like racehorses, not like humans. Everything was about performance, achievement, comparison. Neither of you learned how to just exist without measuring yourself against something. She was right. Sophia had never learned to value herself outside of achievements. I'd never learned to achieve without fear of failure. We were two sides of the same damaged coin. Final update. Finding peace. As I write this, it's been a year since Sophia's engagement announcement that started this whole saga. The cabin still stands, unchanged by renovation plans or property schemes. But everything else has transformed. Sophia is genuinely rebuilding her life. She's still in therapy, working through years of perfectionism and external validation seeking. She got a job at a non-profit, lower pay than her previous corporate position but more fulfilling. She's dating casually but says she needs to learn to be alone before she can be with someone else healthily. The divorce from Mark was finalized last month. He got nothing except the lesson that not every family is an easy mark. Our parents have done their own soul-searching. They've acknowledged their role in creating the competitive dynamic between us. My mom particularly has struggled with the realization that her encouragement often came in the form of comparison. They're trying to change, though old habits die hard. Last week, my mom started to say, "Sophia's doing so well at her new job, maybe you should," before catching herself and changing course. Emma has become the unofficial family therapist, calling out dysfunction when she sees it and refusing to let us slip back into old patterns. She jokes that she should charge us for her services, but I know she's just relieved to see her cousins finally acting like family instead of rivals. As for the cabin, it's become something unexpected, neutral ground. Sophia visited last month for the first time since everything exploded. She stood on the deck, looking at the view, and said, "It really is beautiful. I can see why you love it." "You're welcome to visit," I said, meaning it. "As a guest. As my sister." She smiled, and for the first time in years, it reached her eyes. "I'd like that. But maybe not yet. I need to figure out who I am when I'm not trying to take things from you. We're planning a family gathering at the cabin for Thanksgiving. Not a takeover, not a competition, just families sharing a space and a meal. My parents will come, Emma will bring her partner, and Sophia will come alone but not lonely. We'll probably struggle with old dynamics and have to consciously choose new patterns. But we're trying. The cabin that was almost stolen has become a symbol of something else. Boundaries held, truths revealed, and relationships rebuilt on honesty instead of performance. It's still my sanctuary, my achievement, my space. But now it's also a reminder that protecting what's yours doesn't mean you can't share it freely when the time and circumstances are right. Sophia sent me a text yesterday. It was a listing for a small condo she's considering buying. "My own place," she wrote. "Smaller than your cabin, but mine. No schemes, no manipulation, just saving and working. It feels good." I wrote back, "I'm proud of you." And I meant it. She responded, "I'm proud of me too. And Lucas." I'm proud of you for standing up to us. To me. If you'd let me take the cabin, we'd never have gotten here. She's right. Sometimes the best thing you can do for someone you love is refuse to enable their worst impulses. Sometimes protecting your boundaries saves more than just your property. It saves your relationships, forcing them to transform or reveal their true nature. The cabin still stands on its 5 acres, unchanged by grand renovation plans. But everything around it, every relationship, every family dynamic, every understanding of success and failure, has been renovated from the foundation up. And unlike Mark's proposed improvements, these changes actually increased the value of what matters most. Looking back, I realized this was never really about a cabin. It was about 2 siblings raised to compete instead of connect, trying to find their worth through comparison rather than introspection. It took a scheme, an exposure, a marriage dissolution, and months of therapy to break the pattern. But we did break it. To anyone dealing with similar family dynamics, know this: holding your boundaries isn't selfish, it's necessary. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is say no. And sometimes, a crisis that seems like it will tear everything apart is actually the catalyst for rebuilding something healthier. The cabin remains my sanctuary. But now, instead of being a symbol of what I achieved despite my family, it's become a symbol of what we achieved as a family. The ability to change, to grow, and to love each other as individuals rather than as competitors in a race none of us needed to run. Sophia and I aren't perfect siblings now. We still have moments of tension, old resentments that surface, and patterns we have to consciously resist. But we're real with each other in a way we never were before. The performance has ended, the competition concluded, and what's left is just us, flawed, working on ourselves, but finally free from the exhausting need to measure our worth against each other. That's worth more than any cabin could ever be.